In Exodus chapter 14, Moses and the Israelites find themselves in a frightening predicament. They're trapped between the sea on the one side and Pharaoh's army on the other, between the hammer and the anvil. And the people are well aware of the danger. Exodus 14:10 says that as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." First of all, no, the Israelites did not actually want Moses to leave them as slaves in Egypt. But in their defense, it's hard to argue that the current situation is an improvement. They face the specter of almost certain death, either by drowning or by the sword. In other words, the people have correctly discerned the danger, and they're right to take it seriously. It is serious. Where they are wrong is they have forgotten whom they serve. Contrast their response with Moses' response. Moses too sees the danger, and he too takes it seriously. The difference is that Moses has not forgotten to take God into account. Look how he responds in verse 13. Moses answered the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." Isn't that interesting? Moses sees the same danger. He sees the same sea, and he sees the same army. But where the people panic, Moses is calm. And Moses is calm because he has remembered that their hope has never been in themselves. And it's a good thing that it isn't. If their hope were in themselves, they would be in deep trouble. They can't swim the sea, and they certainly can't defeat Pharaoh's army. If their hope was in themselves alone, they would be right to despair. But of course, they are not alone. God is with them, and that makes all the difference. Because these two massive problems present not the smallest difficulty for God. Israel needs only to be still and to trust in him. And God says that he will fight for them. He will deliver them, as indeed he does. This story culminates a little bit later in the chapter in what has become one of my favorite passages. It starts in verse 21. It says this, "Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with a wall of water on their right and on their left." Here's what I love about that picture. We are told a few verses back that God says to Moses he will deliver his people. And Moses' part, are you ready for it, is to stretch out his arm over the sea. That's it. And so Moses does. Verse 21 tells us he stretches out his arm. That is, Moses obeys. He trusts in God. And yet we are also told, and it's crystal clear, that it is not Moses, but God who does the heavy lifting. It's God who pushes back the water. It's God who delivers his people. I'd like you to remember two things from Moses and our story today. First, like Moses, we need to have our eyes open to the problems, issues, and dangers around us in our current context today. We'd be fools not to. We need to see them and take them seriously because they are serious. COVID-19 and the unemployment that follows in its wake has already proven tragic for thousands of people, and it will prove tragic for thousands more before all is said and done. We cannot afford to hide our eyes or to look away. We need to see it so that we can take it seriously. And because we take it seriously, we need, second, also like Moses, to remember where our hope lies. I get it. It's easy right now to look around at all the circumstances around us and to panic or be afraid and worry. In fact, if you did not know the Lord, I would think that fear would be a very understandable response to everything that's going on. But we do know the Lord. And that should make all the difference, because our hope has never been in ourselves or our politicians or our systems. Our hope is, and it must be, where it has always been, in the Lord, in the God of Moses and the Exodus.